Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Donnie and Dolly title sponsor is Able Auctions. It is Monday. All of our guests today, including Brendan Batchelor, standing by, are sponsored by Basant Motors. Basant Motors trying to do Santa's job again this Christmas. They're giving away gifts with all purchases. Learn more at basantmotors.com. Unsigned into the Delaney's OK Tire in Langley inbox. I disagree with Donnie about hiring Boudreau being a bad idea. I think this hiring gives us those are his words or her words, legitimate coach with experience, and the new president has time to assess the state of the franchise without needing to rush. I felt, and I said this last week or 2 weeks ago, that, let go of Benning. That's what people weren't chanting fire Green. They were chanting fire Benning. Keep Travis Green, evaluate things from there, but it's all so far worked out really well. Going against what I was saying, which often happens. Just ask my wife. All right, Canucks defeat the Hurricanes 2-1. They host, as I mentioned, Columbus tomorrow at Rogers Arena. Joining us now, the voice of the Canucks on Sportsnet 650, Brendan Batchelor. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you guys doing today?
Very well. Very well.
Good. Very good.
Did I hear you talking on 650 this morning, playoffs for the Canucks? Did I get that right?
I mentioned the word, but I said it's a little bit too early to get into that conversation. But look, Bruce Boudreau has this team believing right now. They've won 4 games in a row. And inside that room, they will imagine that anything is possible. Outside looking in, certainly we know there's a ton of work to do. This team, I believe, isn't as bad as they showed early in the season. They're probably not as good as they've been over the last 4 games as well. And that's what I want to hear from Jim Rutherford at the press conference coming up here in about 40 minutes, is where he sees this group, because it's easy to get deceived by results, both negative and positive. But I'm interested to see where the new president feels this team and this organization is at right now.
Media conference for Jim Rutherford coming up just after 11 o'clock. What do you notice the most, Brendan, when it comes to the impact Bruce Boudreau has had on the Canucks?
Well, it's certainly the aggressive style of play. We've talked about it on the penalty kill, the forechecking and pressuring the puck, and, not being content with trying to protect a 1-goal lead. They continue to try and chase offense, and they've done a lot better job of relieving pressure in their own zone. You look at the game last night against Carolina, that's a pretty heavy forechecking team, and without Hamonic and Ekman-Larsson in the lineup right now, you've got guys like Pullman playing his offside, playing an elevated role, but they've done a pretty good job defensively of limiting high danger chances. At least that's what I'm seeing from watching the games, and it's allowed them to win 4 in a row here, even if some of them have been pretty close games.
Brendan, you did a lot of games with Jacob Markstrom standing on his head. He was back-to-back team MVP of this team not long ago. What about Demko and just the role he is on?
Yeah, he's been remarkable. A .962 save percentage in his last 4 games now, first star of the week in the NHL, and he's giving this team a chance to win every night, which is something that he was doing even when they were struggling in front of him and losing most of the games that they were playing. So now that, they've cleaned up some of the stuff in front of him, they're producing more offense. He's helping them win games, and he continues to do it on a nightly basis. And, you look at the sequence late in the third period last night where the Hurricanes are pressing and he has to stand tall a couple of times, but he does the job. And here we are now 4 games into the Bruce Boudreau era, and this team has gained 8 points.
Seen a lot of smiles, fist bumps, all that stuff, mostly from 2 guys, Besser and Pettersson, feeling the vibes here in the past week. They can't go very far without these 2 producing. Your thoughts on both them?
Yeah, they've both been a lot better, and I would imagine that a fresh voice and some added responsibility will do wonders for those guys, especially in Pettersson's case. He's talked about how much it means to him to be trusted to kill penalties, and we know that Boudreau's using a lot of penalty killers, 8 forwards really, as he rolls through the lines and wants them to be playing much more aggressively and pressuring. But they've both been a lot better. Besser's offense is coming around now. Pettersson scores last night, scores the goal in the shootout the other night as well, is starting to look more confident. And you're right, Rick. These guys are going to go. This team is going to go as far as these guys and the top offensive players carry them. So it's certainly encouraging to see signs of life from both Besser and Pettersson.
Brendan, we talked about this in our first segment, but how important do you think it is at the NHL level, any level really of hockey, to get everybody on the bench involved as Bruce Boudreau has done?
Yeah, there's a real togetherness that this team feels, and he's come in and had a positive message right away, and it seems like he's getting buy-in from throughout the group. And certainly when you win 4 straight games, it's a lot easier to get people to listen to your message. But we had talked about this on the broadcasts, leading up to the management and coaching changes, that it felt like this was a team that was waiting for something to happen. And now that that change has happened and Boudreau has come in, they seem fully ready to receive his message and to go out and play for him and play for each other. And, it's led to the results we've seen over the last week and a bit.
What does Boudreau like about Vasily Podkolzin?
Well, I mean, he's a young Russian player, obviously, a big body. He can get in and play physically. He's got the skill set. He's got the shot. We've seen all of these things. And, when it comes to Podkolzin, I would imagine he's got to be very excited to work with Bruce Boudreau too, because this is a guy that worked with Alex Ovechkin when he was breaking into the league. And so there's that level of experience there. So we've seen Podkolzin have added responsibilities. He's out late in the game protecting the lead last night. That's something that I'm sure he will be encouraged by. And that's one of the biggest takeaways, I think, for me from Boudreau's time coming in as a whole. Is it's one thing to come in and say that it's a clean slate for everyone and there are going to be new opportunities, but it's another thing to give guys those opportunities. So whether it's Pettersson and Hughes on the penalty kill, Podkolzin playing an elevated role, Dickinson being moved to a shutdown line, all of these guys are getting chances and opportunities and elevated roles that maybe they weren't before. And it's clear that they're embracing it.
And Brandon, before we let you go, Flames have postponed 3 games, 6 players in COVID protocol. Now 17% of the National Hockey League has entered protocol at some point this season. Do you think the Olympics is going to happen?
Yeah, I wonder, especially now that we're getting into the month of December and, there's a full team being postponed again. Obviously, we saw it earlier in the season with the Islanders. I'm getting more and more skeptical now that NHL players are going to go to the Olympics, especially, we saw what Robin Lehner had to say about how he decided to pull out and not go to the Olympics because of the risk of quarantine. It sounds like the restrictions in China are going to be very rigid. And this has always been a player-driven thing where it's the players that want to go to the Olympics and take part. And so if there's any hesitancy on the players' part with the rising COVID cases in the league, and with the restrictions that they potentially will have to face, a quarantine of up to 5 weeks potentially if they test positive in China, I wonder if we're going to see NHL players at the Olympics. If you ask me to make a prediction right now, I would say probably not this time around.
Wow. Brandon, thanks for this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.